took the train home, and they were living on Park Avenue, and we moved in with them, and I went out and got a job, and Mom and Dad took care of the kids, and I went to work for Ambro Advertising, and I really liked it. It was fun. It was a fun job. And I ended up being there, about 6 years. But about the second year, let's see, it was about 1955. But there was so much going on there. They advertised, did the advertising for the banks and the Republicans. There's always something going on. And we were the place where they organized Life Investors Insurance, which is now Aegon. And all those guys came, and it was just kind of fun being part of it, you know. We didn't realize, I thought, oh, we don't need another insurance company, but look what it turned out to be. So, you know, they knew what they were doing. And so about a year later, I was the receptionist, and I did all the typing, the commercials, and all that kind of stuff. And a year later, they hired Tom Meis as a TV writer, TV commercial writer. And yeah, he was a nice guy. I didn't really have a chance to talk to him, but one day we met hanging our coats up in the coat room, and he said he had some Jackie Gleason records. Do I have a record player? And I said, yeah, I do. He said, well, how would you like to listen to some of those? And I said, well, that sounds like fun. So our first date, I think, was at Armour. They had a big name dance band. I can't remember who it was, but we went with a couple of his friends. We had lots of fun. He was a fun guy. He was involved in so many things, JC's, and he was just really an active person. So, yeah, well, I didn't think anything about it, because I really didn't feel like I wanted to get married again, and so we just had a good time. We went to a lot of parties. He was in the theater. We had lots of cast parties. And we just enjoyed life, and my kids seemed to be happy, and my mom got the idea that, well, we moved to Daniel Street. We lived on Daniel Street for a while. It was an old rundown house, but it was home, and kids had a good time. They went to Polk School, which was kind of a walk. Then my mom got the idea she wanted to buy a house, so she signed for a house out near Norridge on Sherman Street. $14,000 we paid for that house, and it didn't have a basement, but it was a nice little new house, and we really had a good time there. The kids went over to the park. It was only like a block away from the park, and ice skated in the wintertime, and they had a lot of friends. And the boys went to, I think Sue started Wright School, just about a couple blocks from Wright School. And then, I don't know, just Tom and I been going together for 6 years, and I think we decided, and he had Tim. Tim was living with Grandma Meis, and Tom was too. It was time to get married. They were transferring him to Des Moines to work in the Amber office there, which is kind of a service office. There were only a few people that worked there, but their main job was Iowa Power, the electric company there. So we decided to get married, and we moved all the kids. We went on Halloween night, we went to Des Moines looking for an apartment, a house to live in, and we found a duplex. And so the next weekend we moved everybody there, and it was quite a procedure getting everybody in school. Tom wanted Tim to go to a Catholic school, and of course I wanted my children to go to the regular school. So that was kind of a problem, getting them to school and picking them up, And then I decided, well, I was working at the office, the Ambro office there. I was the typist there. Uh, and and Tom was always in the theater. He was, he joined right away, auditioned, got the part, so, yeah, yeah. And then Jamie came along, and I was working for Manpower. Uh, one job was at York Air Conditioning, and I worked there 2 weeks, and they wanted me to stay, but I really didn't want a full-time job. I really didn't feel like I had the time, you know. So Tom found out they were transferring back to Cedar Rapids, so we all moved back to Cedar Rapids in summer, right before the state fair, so the kids didn't get to go to the fair, but that would be in August, and moved into a little house on Richmond Road Northeast, a little ranch type house, and it was a nice house. The kids all went to St. Matthew's School, and then they found out, I think we lived there about a year, and then we found out that the people that were renting us the house wanted the house back because they were going to move back in. They were going to get a divorce, and they decided not to, so they moved back in, and we moved to Ellis Boulevard, and kids went to St. Patrick's School then, which was quite a walk. I don't remember taking them, but they must have, I guess, you know, they did walk quite a ways, so, let's see, Chris was born on Alice, Julie was born in Richmond Road, and then Chris was born on March 26th on Alice, and we were having a flood. The ice in the river had just gone out. And so we were afraid we were going to be flooded out. We were going to have to evacuate. Well, I was in the hospital, which was kind of unfortunate, but as it turned out, didn't have to. So, okay, I was working for Holiday Inn before Chris. It had just opened, Holiday Inn out on 16th Avenue, and they had just opened. And I worked weekends, and that was kind of fun. Tom brought the kids out to swim their pool. That was kind of fun. So Chris was born, and then the next year Cindy was born, April 8th. She was born, and I don't think I was working then. No, I didn't get anything to do then. I was home babysitting, I guess. Then we found out that the people that we're renting from, this seems like an old story. Oh, they wanted the house back because his brother was going to move in while they were having a new house built. So Tom found me a house out near Beaver. It was the ugliest thing you've ever seen. Dirty, old. It was July. Cindy was just a few months old, actually. This was July. We had a real major storm. I mean, it was a downpour, a lot of rain, and I heard we were just moving in, heard water running, and opened up the basement, and there must have been 100 holes, and the water was coming in. And I sat down and cried. I thought, I just can't live here. And my sweetheart of a dad said, Betty, we'll fix this house up. You won't even know it's the same place, because he was a painter and a paper hanger, and they did. They painted and paper hung, and they never did fix the basement though. So every time it rained, and the kids had a big yard, and Tom had his pigeons. He always had to have his pigeons in a coop back there in the backyard. And they sided the house. It was Jim Beaver's house. and he sited it. It wasn't bad at all. But they started building houses, new houses up the hill, so I really long for a nice ranch house. This had 2 stories, but we did okay. My kids, started at Regis, and they were going to All Saints, and then Sue just decided she wanted to go to McKinley. Okay, and Tim was going to Regis, so she went to McKinley. And then we decided to buy a house, so we bought the house on 26th Street at $19,000. It was a big house, certainly not big enough for our family because we had Tommy before we moved to 26th. We had Tom. Tom was the last child, and so we bought the house on 26th Street. And the boys had the basement. It had a bed downstairs. And Steve had that little teeny tiny bedroom. Do you remember that? It was just big enough for a bed up on 2nd floor. I started working on 26th Street. Started working at Collins, downtown above the gas company. And I was working in what they call graphic arts. And when I think about, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was working on the Apollo. I never heard of it before. I had no idea what I was doing, but we typed up the instruction books on how to assemble and disassemble the Apollo navigation and radio system. Oh my gosh! So anyway. Tom got a job down in Louisville, so I quit. I terminated, and we were going to move down there. He was on a trial for 30 days, so we waited. I was going to put the house up for sale, and then we were going to load up and head out. Steve wasn't going to go because he had just started college, and so he wanted to stay. He had a girlfriend. So he didn't want to go with us, so I was all ready to go, and then Tom said, hold the phone, they're going to let me come home. So it didn't work out, I guess. And so, what did he do? I can't remember where he worked after that. We worked, he was in a play for the community theater, and this new advertising agency hired him. That was before Louisville. They hired him as a copywriter, and that didn't work out too good either. So he was back looking for a job, and he applied. He took the civil service exam down at the post office. He looked every place. I'm trying to remember when Roosevelt came in there. I think that was when we moved to 30th Street. Yeah, okay. So, it's been a long time ago. What else? Oh, 26th Street. And I was working. Steve was in college. And then the draft came up. Steve quit college. Tom had his accident December 23rd of 67, and I almost died. It was almost a fatal accident. And he was in the hospital in Iowa City for 6 weeks, and they sent him home in a body cast, and we had a hospital bed in the living room. And he was right there at the end of the living room, so he knew what was going on all the time. Yeah, he did. And I was working nights, and Sue, bless her heart, Sue took care of things at home. And the boys, I don't know what they did, but Steve was working, he quit school then, and he was working at the Collins Cherry Building in stock. They used it for stock they still have Cherry Building, you know, but it's not Collins anymore. But he was working down there in stock room, and he had this beautiful big yellow convertible that he bought, and we didn't have a car for a long time because Tom totaled our car. But Mary Margaret gave me a fleet car from Collins. It was really just practically new, and all I had to do was buy the gas for it. It was just really great. Yeah. So Tom came home after 6 weeks, and he was laid up for a long time. But I couldn't sleep in my bedroom. I just couldn't. I slept on the sofa in the living room with him, and some mornings I'd wake up and he wouldn't be in his bed as he got better, you know. And he'd be out walking. He was determined he was going to get back. And he had a family to feed, and he had to get back to work. And he'd be out walking in his robe and walker. 26th Street was kind of a double block, so it was long. But he'd walk all the way up to Beaver and stop and talk to the people along the way, because he loved people. He loved talking to people. And he got to know all the neighbors, you know? I just can't believe. Yeah, and the Nassos lived on the corner of that big, huge White House. And one day I was getting ready for work. I went to work at 3:30, left for work. And one of the Nassau boys had this big pot, and it was full of these grape leaves and rice and mutton. And Mrs. Nassau Mahiba was her name, had made this pot of grape leaves for us. It's a must be a Syrian.
Yeah, I think.
Lebanese.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah. That was so nice of her, but they had grape vines on the side of the house, and she'd be out there picking the leaves, and that's what she was doing one day when Tom went by, and she said she would give him the recipe. Anyway, he just had I mean, he was gone maybe an hour, just walked, but he got back on his feet, and I think in September he went back to work at Collins Construction out there. I couldn't believe it. He had a compound fracture by his femur, which is pretty serious. That's what carries you, you know, your weight. And a crushed chest. He took the steering wheel in his chest, and every rib was broken, the doctor said. And they didn't know what was going to be the outcome until later. And then he had an injury to the head, but apparently it didn't do any damage outside of just there was something up there. I don't remember. Anyway, the bank took the house over because I wasn't able to pay the mortgage, and some things had to go. I mean, you know, it was really tough. He didn't have any disability at all, and so Steve gave me his paycheck every week. Bless his heart, he'd worked. I don't know how much he kept out for himself, but he helped us all that time, and I'm always grateful to him for that. So Steve left for the Air Force. He found out that he and Tim found out that they were going to be drafted. They were going to have a draft for the service because of the Vietnam War. So they enlisted, and Steve enlisted in the Air Force, and Tim enlisted in the Army on a buddy system with his friend Dave Sisko. And so Steve went to San Antonio, Texas for basic, and Tim went to Des Moines to take off for basic, I think, Fort Ord in Washington. And his buddy couldn't go because he had drug charges, so Tim went on without his buddy. And then we moved to 30th Street Drive. It was just not too far from Indian Creek, and Jamie loved that area. They had lots of fun getting together.